at it again. We have one with Jordan Peterson. I have seen a clip from this video. I've never watched it in its entirety. So that is what we shall be doing. Let's dive in.
Jordan Peterson, you've said that men need to...
By the way, yes, I know the video is quite transparent. That is done intentionally, but let's continue on.
Quote, grow the hell up. Tell me why.
Well, because there's nothing uglier than an old infant. There's nothing good about it. People who don't grow up don't find the sort of meaning in their life that sustains them through difficult times, and they're certain to encounter difficult times. And they're left bitter and resentful and without purpose and adrift and hostile and resentful and vengeful and arrogant and deceitful and of no use to themselves and of no use to anyone else and no partner for a woman, and there's nothing in it that's good.
So you say, I mean, that sounds pretty bad. You're saying there's a crisis of masculinity? I mean, what do you do about it?
You help people understand why it's necessary and important for them to grow up and adopt responsibility. Why that isn't a shake your finger and get your act together sort of thing. Why it's more like a delineation of the kind of destiny that makes life worth living. I've been telling young men, but it's not. I wasn't specifically aiming this message at young men to begin with. It just kind of turned out that way.
And it's mostly, you admit, it's mostly men listening. I mean,
it
90% of your audience is a male.
Well, it's about 80% on YouTube, which is YouTube is a male domain primarily. So it's hard to tell how much of it is because YouTube is male and how much of it is because of what I'm saying. But what I've been telling young men is that there's an actual reason why they need to grow up, which is that...
I think my audience isn't quite 80. I want to say it's like 70-30 or something. 70% men that, are watching and 30% women. We got to get some more ladies into the channel. We got to up that 30% a little bit.
They have something to offer, that people have within them this capacity to set the world straight, and that's necessary to manifest in the world. And that also doing so is where you find the meaning that sustains you in life.
So what's gone wrong then?
Oh God, all sorts of things have gone wrong. I don't think that young men hear words of encouragement. Some of them never in their entire lives, as far as I can tell. That's what they tell me. And the fact that the words that I've been speaking, the YouTube lectures that I've done and put online, for example, have had such a dramatic impact is an indication that young men are starving for this sort of message, because why in the world would they have to derive it from a lecture on YouTube? They're not being taught that it's important to develop yourself.
But does it bother you that your audience is predominantly male? Isn't that a bit divisive?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's no more divisive than the fact that YouTube is primarily male and Tumblr is primarily female.
Isn't it?
Tumblr is primarily female.
But you're just saying that's the way it is.
Well, I'm not saying anything. It's just an observation that that's the way it is. There's plenty of women that are watching my lectures and coming to my talks and buying my books. It's just that the majority of them happen to be men.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? Do you want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with that's going to help you and that you can rely on?
Women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity?
It depends on what they want. I mean, it's exactly how I laid it out.
I could definitely see where this interview is going. The twisting of words. We've seen that. What was the interview? I think it was a Jordan Peterson interview. There was a situation where everything he said was continually twisted, and I'm just watching and listening no, that's not what he said at all. Seems like we're going down that same path with this one, but let's continue on.
Women deeply want men who are competent and powerful, and I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. No. That's not power.
Yeah.
That's just corruption. Power is competence. And why in the world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So if you want domination...
want to dominate, is that what you're saying?
No, I'd say women who have had their relationships impaired, their relationships with men impaired and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate them. But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you think that's what a lot of women are doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that. And I think it's very bad for them. They're very unhappy. It's very bad for their partners, although the partners get the advantage of not having to take any responsibility.
But what gives you the right to say that? I mean, maybe that's how women want their relationships, those women. I mean, you're making these vast generalizations.
I'm a clinical psychologist.
I want to say there was a study on that said that type of relationship never really works in the end. But I could be wrong. I could be tweaking. I come across so many different videos and things that I just don't even make videos on and upload to YouTube. I just watch in my own time. But I'm almost positive. And this was a while ago. This had nothing to do with this journey that I'm on now. This was well before even this. I want to say it might have been like a Kevin Samuels video. Rest in peace to his soul. I think that might have been one of the videos. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kevin Samuels, but he made like the relationship type of content before he unfortunately passed away. And I want to say that statistic came up. Those type of relationships never really work out, where the woman is more dominant in the relationship than the man. But if there's other statistics that you guys are aware of, please let me know in the comment section. Let's continue on.
Right, so you're saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
Okay, you said it was making them miserable.
Thing. Yes, it is. And it depends on the time frame. I mean, there's intense pleasure in momentary domination. That's why people do it all the time. But it's no formula for a successful long-term relationship. That's reciprocal, right? Any long-term relationship is reciprocal, virtually by definition. So,
let me put a quote to you from the book, where you say, there are whole disciplines in universities forthrightly hostile towards men. These are the areas of study dominated by the postmodern neo-Marxist claim that Western culture in particular is an oppressive structure created by white men to dominate and exclude women. But then I want to put
minorities too dominate.
Okay, sure. But I want to put to you that here in the UK, for example, let's take that as an example, the gender pay gap stands at just over 9%. You've got women at the BBC recently saying that the broadcaster is illegally paying them less than men to do the same job. You've got only 7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies.
Yeah.
So it seems to a lot of women that they're still being dominated and excluded, to quote your words back to you.
It does seem that way, but multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't exist.
But that's just not true, is it?
That's
I mean, that
absolutely
9% pay gap, that's a gap between median hourly earnings between men and women.
But there's
that exists.
Yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist.
Comparing apples to oranges once again, instead of oranges to actual oranges. We've gone through this. I don't need to dive into this.
Worth your salt. You never do a univariate analysis. Like you say, well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well, then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation, we break it down by interest, we break it down by personality.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top, because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of life. Women aren't necessarily going to get to the top.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter either.
You're saying it's a fact
there are
of
multiple
life.
Reasons for it.
Yeah, but those reasons, why should women put up with those reasons? Why should women be content
I'm not
not
saying
to
that
get
they
to the
should
top?
put up with it. I'm saying that the claim that the wage gap between men and women is only due to sex is wrong. And it is wrong. There's no doubt about that. The multivariate analysis have been done. So
Well,
I can give you an example.
You keep on talking about multivariate analysis.
Let me give you an
but
example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap exists.
Yeah.
That's a gap between men and women. I'm not saying why it exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're
have
a
to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
He said exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say you have to say why it exists. It exists. I'm not going to say why it exists. You have to say why it exists. Yeah, this is going to be frustrating to watch.
You have to say why it exists.
But do you agree that it's unfair? If you're a woman,
Not necessarily.
and on average you're getting paid 9% less than a man, that's not fair, is it?
It depends on why it's happening. I can give you an example. Okay. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite. And agreeable people get paid less than less agreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men.
Again, a vast generalization. Some
It's
women
not
are
a
not more
generalization.
agreeable than
yes,
men.
that's true, but that's right. And some women get paid more than men.
So you were saying that by and large, women are too agreeable to
Great comeback.
get the pay rises they deserve.
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation that predicts salary. It accounts for maybe 5% of the variance, something like that.
So surely
you
the
need about
answer-
another 20, you need about another 18 factors, one of which is gender. And there is prejudice, there's no doubt about that, but it accounts for a much smaller proportion of the variance in the pay gap than the radical feminists claim.
Okay, so rather than denying the pay gap exists, which is what you did at the beginning of this conversation, shouldn't you say to women, rather than being agreeable and not asking for a pay rise, go and ask for a pay rise? Make yourself disagreeable with your boss.
Oh, definitely, there's that. But I also didn't deny it existed. I denied it existed because of gender.
Okay.
See, because I'm very, very, very careful with my words.
So the pay gap exists, you accept that, but you're saying, I mean, the pay gap between men and women exists, but you're saying it's not because of gender, it's because women are too agreeable to ask for pay rises. So
It's
make
one
them-
of the reasons.
Okay, one of the reasons. So why not get them to ask for a pay rise?
I've
Wouldn't
done
that be
that.
a fairer
I've done
way of
that
proceeding?
many, many times in my career.
And they just
I've
don't?
counseled. Oh, they do it all the time. You can. It's so one of the things that you do as a clinical psychologist is assertiveness training. So you might say, often you treat people for anxiety, you treat them for depression, and maybe the next most common category after that would be assertiveness training. And so I've had many, many women, extraordinarily competent women in my clinical and consulting practice, and we put together strategies for their career development that involve continual pushing, competing for higher wages, and often tripled their wages within a 5-year period, teaching
you
them how to
celebrate that?
negotiate.
Wow.
Of course.
So
Of
do
course.
you agree that you would be happy if that pay gap was eliminated completely?
It
Because
would
that's all
depend.
the radical feminists are saying.
It would depend on how it was eradicated and how the disappearance of it was measured.
And you're
These
saying
things
if
you
it's at
can't-
the
you
cost
can't-
of men, that's a problem.
Oh, there's all sorts of things that it could be at the cost of. It could even be at the cost of women's own interests. So
Because they might not.
Wow. You know, one thing I will say, I will give this lady here credit because she is good at like flipping things instantly. He'll say something and then she'll flip it. Oh, so you're saying that women are only paid less because they just agree with everything? No, he literally just said that's one of the reasons why. She's good at flipping everything. This is crazy. Does she still do interviews? Somebody let me know in the comment section. I hope not, because this is, my goodness. You know, I mean, it's funny, but in terms of just being a good interview, this is terrible. Somebody let me know. This is crazy.
Be happy if they get equal pay.
no, because it might interfere with other things that are causing the pay gap that women are choosing to do.
Like having children.
Well, or choosing careers that actually happen to be paid less, which women do a lot of.
But why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children or the right to choose those demanding
They
careers?
do. They can. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large.
I'm saying that no, I'm not saying that. I actually haven't said that so far.
You're
in the
saying
program.
it makes them miserable.
No, I
at the
said that
beginning.
what was making them miserable was having weak partners. That makes them miserable.
Right.
I would say that many women around the age of, I would say between 28 and 32, have a career family crisis that they have to deal with. And I think that's partly because of the foreshortened time frame that women have to contend with. Like, women have to get the major pieces of their life put together faster than men, which is also partly why men aren't under so much pressure to grow up. So because for the typical woman, she has to have her career and family in order pretty much by the time she's 35, because otherwise the options start to run out. And so that puts a tremendous amount of stress on women, especially at the end of their 20s.
I think I take issue with the idea of the typical woman because, you know, all women are different. And that's what I want to just put another quote to you from the book.
Well,
You
they're
say,
different in some ways and the same in others.
Okay, you say women become more vulnerable when they have children.
Oh,
And
yes.
you talked in one of your YouTube interviews about crazy harpy sisters. So, simple question. Is gender equality a myth in your view? Is that something that's just never going to happen?
It depends on what you mean by equality. No,
Being
if
treated
you mean that
fairly,
men and women,
getting the same opportunities?
fairly, we could get to a point where people were treated fairly or more fairly. I mean, people are treated pretty fairly in Western culture already, but we can
But they're
improve
really
that.
not, though, are they? I mean, otherwise, why
depends
would there only be 7 women running FTSE 100 companies in the UK? Why would there still be a pay gap, which we've
Oh, well,
discussed
that's
at
easy.
length?
Maybe because not enough women try to run some of these companies. Maybe there's a lot more men, in comparison, if you had a pool of applicants, maybe 90% of those individuals are men and only 10% are women. So, of course, the likelihood of a man getting picked is a lot higher because there's a lot more men that have applied. Maybe that's the reason. I mean, and obviously that list can go on and on and on, as Jordan Peterson has stated throughout this interview, but she just keeps ignoring.
Why are women at the BBC saying that they're getting paid illegally less than men to do the same job?
Well,
that's not fair, is
let's
it?
go to the first question. Those are complicated questions. Seven women. Repeat that one. There's
7
only
women running the top FTSE 100 companies in the UK.
Okay. Well, the
I mean,
first
that's not
question
fair.
might be, why would you want to do that?
Why would a man want to do it? I
Well,
mean, there's a lot of
there's
money. It's an interesting
there's a
job.
certain number of men, although not that many, who are perfectly willing to sacrifice virtually all of their life to the pursuit of a high-end career. So they'll work. These are men that are very intelligent. They're usually very, very conscientious. They're very driven. They're very high energy. They're very healthy. And they're willing to work 70 or 80 hours a week, nonstop, specialized at one thing to get to the top.
So you're saying women are just more sensible. They don't want that because it's not a nice life.
I'm saying that's part of it, definitely. And so I work
So
for...
you don't think there are barriers in their way that prevent them getting to the top
Oh,
of
there
those
are
companies?
some barriers, yeah, like men, for example. I mean, to get to the top of any organization is an incredibly competitive enterprise. And the men that you're competing with are simply not going to roll over and say, please take the position.
So let me come back to my
absolute
question.
all-out warfare.
Is gender equality a myth?
I don't know what you mean by the question. Men and women aren't the same, and they won't be the same. That doesn't mean they can't be treated fairly.
Is gender equality desirable?
If it means equality of outcome, then almost certainly it's undesirable. That's already been demonstrated in Scandinavia. Because in Scandinavia...
What do you mean by that? Equality of outcome is undesirable.
Well, men and women won't sort themselves into the same categories if you leave them alone to do it of their own accord. We've already seen that in Scandinavia. It's 20 to 1 female nurses to male, something like that. It might not be quite that extreme, and approximately the same male engineers to female engineers. And that's a consequence of the free choice of men and women in the societies that have gone farther than any other societies to make gender equality the purpose of the law. Those are ineradicable differences. You can eradicate them with tremendous social pressure and tyranny, but if you leave men and women to make their own choices, you will not get equal outcomes.
Right, so you're saying that anyone who believes in equality, whether you...
Some of these crazy feminists, I mean, my goodness. Should we treat women fairly? Of course, we can all agree on that, but this push to make women the same as men is just weird. And once again, I refer back to what Candace Owens said because it was so perfect in explaining how I think we are. It's like the yin and the yang. We fit perfectly together. We complete the cycle or the circle, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of individuals now want to think or say that women are the same as men, and we aren't. And that is okay. That doesn't mean that women are less than men. It just means that we're different. It means that women are better at some things than men. It means that men are better at certain things than women. And that is perfectly fine. So when men and women come together, the man does what he's good at, the woman does what she's good at and comfortable with, and they make each other complete. I don't understand what's wrong with that. And obviously there's variance. I mean, of course, a woman can do what a man can do. I'm not saying that a woman can't do that, those things, or a man, can't do what a woman can do. Obviously, we can all get each other's things done, but it's more of like a yin and yang. Like you just heard from Jordan Peterson in Scandinavia, it's been tried. We together complete the circle where each one half. It's the way that I see it. But y'all can let me know how you feel about it in the comment section.
Call them feminists, call them whatever you want to call them, should basically give up because it ain't going to happen.
Only if they're aiming at equality of outcome.
So you're saying give people equality of opportunity, that's fine.
It's not only fine, it's eminently desirable for everyone, for individuals and for society.
But still women aren't going to make it. That's what you're really
It
saying.
depends on your measurement techniques. They're doing just fine in medicine. In fact, there are far more female physicians than there are male physicians. There are lots of disciplines that are absolutely dominated by women. Many, many disciplines, and they're doing great. So
let me put something else to you from the book. You say the introduction of the equal pay for equal work argument immediately complicates even salary comparison beyond practicality for one simple reason. Who decides what work is equal? It's not possible. So the simple question is, do you believe in equal pay?
Well, I made the argument there. It's like it depends on
So
who
you don't
defines
believe
it.
in equal pay?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because a lot of people listening to you will just say, I mean, are we going back to the dark
That's
ages
because they're actually
here?
not listening. They're
I'm
just
listening very
projecting
carefully,
what
and
they
I'm
think.
hearing you basically saying women need to just accept they're never going to make it on equal terms. Equal outcomes is how you defined it.
No, I didn't
If I
say
was
that.
a young
I said that
woman
equal...
watching that, I would go, well, I might as well just go and play with my Cindy dolls and give
didn't
up
say
trying
that.
at school because I'm not going to get the top job I want because
said
there's
that
someone sitting there saying it's not possible
I
and it's
said
not
that
desirable,
equal
it's going to make
outcomes
you
aren't
miserable.
desirable. That's what I said. It's a
Yeah,
bad
it's not
social
desirable.
goal. I didn't say that women shouldn't be striving for the top or anything like that, because I don't believe that for a second.
Striving for the top, but you're going to put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's fine. You're saying that's fine.
What hurdles is she speaking of? Ladies, just a serious question. What hurdles is she referring to that are in the way of women? Let me know. Maybe there are a bunch of them that I'm just not aware of because I'm not a woman and I've never really had to deal with it. Talk to me, please. I'm honestly curious.
No, I really
The
think
patriarchal
I
system
really
is
think
just
that's
fine.
silly. I do. I think that's silly. I really do. I mean, look at your situation. You're hardly unsuccessful.
Yeah, and I have
How do
battled
you
quite
manage
hard
it?
to get where I've got
Exactly.
to.
Good
So that's
for you.
okay. Battling is good. This is all
It's
about the
inevitable.
fight. But you talk about men
Why
fighting. I mean, let me
wouldn't you
just put another thing to you from the book.
Why
You're
wouldn't
saying
you have to
real...
battle for a high-quality position?
Well, I notice in your book you talk about...
She completely ignored that. He referred to it earlier. Getting to the top in a business or getting a high-paying job is a very, very difficult thing to do because a lot of people are gunning for it. A lot of people are striving for it. So based on what she is saying, women should just be handed these high-paying jobs or should be handed the occupation of running a company or whatever else. Because she just said, oh, so you're supposed to have to fight for it? Of course. Not actual fist fighting, of course, which is why I think she put her hands up and whatnot. That's not what we mean. But people aren't just gonna roll over. Oh, there's a woman that wants this occupation. You can have it. No. There's going to be a whole line of men that are going to be busting their butt. There's going to be a whole line of women that are going to be busting their butt to get the same job that whoever wants. May the best person win. Nobody's fighting, physically or anything, but within the company, people are going to be battling it out. Going to be out trying to outdo one another. Hey, I got extra work done this week. Hey, I stayed over, however many hours this last week. You know what I mean? That's just the way that it goes. Right? Y'all let me know in the comments section. Because what she just said there was just craziness.
Real conversations between men containing, quote, an underlying threat of physicality.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
What about real conversations between women? Is that something, or are we sort of too amenable and reasonable?
No, it's just that the domain of physical conflict is sort of off limits for you.
Well, you
It's
just said
rather
that I've
unfortunate.
fought to get where I've got.
Yeah, but
What does that make me?
well,
a sort of proxy man or
I
something?
don't imagine that to some degree, I suspect you're not very agreeable.
So that's the thing. Successful women, I'm not very agreeable.
Right.
But
I've noticed that.
We know. Look. Me and JP said the same thing. I'm like, yeah, we know. And he said, yeah. Right as I was pausing, he was saying, yeah, I noticed that.
I don't imagine that to some degree, I suspect you're not very agreeable.
So that's the thing. Successful women, I'm not very agreeable.
Right.
But
I've noticed that
successful-
actually in this conversation.
At least
and
we
I'm
can have
sure
a
it
joke about
served your career well.
Successful women, though, basically have to wear the trousers, in your view. They have to sort of become men to succeed, is what you're saying.
Well, if they're going
I've had to fight to succeed,
if they're
therefore
going to
I'm an
compete
honorary
against
man.
men, certainly masculine traits are going to be helpful. I mean, one of the things I do in my counseling practice, for example, when I'm consulting with women who are trying to advance their careers is to teach them how to negotiate and to be able to say no and to not be easily pushed around and to be formidable. And you need to, if you're going to be successful, you need to be smart, conscientious, and tough.
Well, here's a radical idea. Why don't the bosses adopt the male bosses, shall we say, adopt some female traits so that women don't have to fight and get their sharp elbows out for the pay rises? It's just accepted if they're doing the same job, they get the same pay.
Well, I would say partly because it's not so easy to determine what constitutes the same job.
But that's because, arguably, there are still men dominating our industries, our society, and therefore they've dictated the terms for so long that women have to battle to be like the men.
No, it's not true. It's not true. So, for example,
where's the evidence?
Well, I can give you an example very quickly. So I worked with women who worked in high-powered law firms in Canada for about 15 years, and they were as competent and put together as anybody you would ever meet. And we were trying to figure out how to further their careers. And there was a huge debate in Canadian society at that point that was basically ran along the same lines as your argument, is that if the law firms didn't use these masculine criteria, then perhaps women would do better. But the market sets the damn game. It's like...
And the market is dominated by men.
No, it's not. It's not. The market is dominated by women. They make 80% of the consumer decisions. That's not the case at all.
If you're talking
80%.
about people who stay at home looking after children, by and large, they are still women. So they're going out doing the shopping. But that is changing.
They make all the consumer decisions.
Okay, so
the market is driven by women, not men.
Right.
Okay, and if you're a lawyer in Canada...
And they still pay more for the same sort of goods. That's been proven, that men, you buy a blue bicycle helmet, it's going to cost less than a pink one. Anyway, we'll come on to that.
It's partly because men are less agreeable. Right, so they won't put up with it.
I want to ask you.
Going back to what he was saying earlier, he stayed consistent. I think that's where we're going to end that today. We'll continue this on tomorrow. Like I said, it is a very, very long video. Well, not very, very long, but it is a pretty long video. But Jordan Peterson, once again, coming with the facts and absolutely shutting everything down. JP is not playing around. I'm telling you. Need to make a t-shirt. Don't mess with Jordan Peterson. I mean, this has been one of the wildest interviews so far that I have ever watched. I mean, the amount of twisting of the words, the amount of, her just trying to catch Jordan in a bind or something. I mean, it is wild. Every time he says something, she twists it and tries to catch him. And every time he comes back. But like I said earlier, I have to give her credit for the consistency, the stamina to keep it going for so long. I mean, it's just everything. It is crazy. Absolutely crazy. But as always, y'all let me know what you thought about all of this in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, and of course, hit that subscribe button before you go. Peace and love. I'm out.